So tonight we're going to talk about leading a soul to Christ. We're going to do some review from what we've already taught and then give you a new point to be able to have and learn. We have some papers, if you have not gotten any of those, of things you want to learn and memorize to be able to help you to be ready to witness. Now, I told you this before, but I was saved when I was a kid, but the only way I ever saw anyone get saved was they came to church and walked the aisle and the preacher showed them how to go to heaven. So that's the way I thought people were supposed to get saved. I later found out, I was in the military, went to church, and a guy got up and preached, and very simply he said, how many people here know that you're saved and on your way to heaven? I raised my hand and said, yeah, I know that. He said, how many people believe there's somebody out there that doesn't know they're on the way to heaven? Yeah, a lot of people. I raised my hand. He said, that's our job. We're supposed to tell them. And literally my jaw dropped. I was like, I'd never heard that before. But it was so simple, and it made so much sense. It's interesting. There's nothing wrong with somebody coming to church and walking out and getting saved, but think what we're doing. We're asking an unsaved person to do something spiritual. We're asking an unspiritual man to do something spiritual and to come to church. And so that's not the best way to do that. In the Bible, they said, go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. Who's supposed to do that? 1 Peter says, as every man hath received the gift, let him minister the same as good stewards of the manifold grace of God. What does that mean? Hey, if somebody gave you a whole lot of zucchini and you can't use it all, you ought to what? Throw it in the trash. No one needs to eat zucchini, right? No. Take the zucchini you have that you're not going to use and do what? Give it to somebody else, okay? Hey, if you've been given the gift of salvation, what are we supposed to do? Take that gift and what? Go give it to somebody else, all right? And by the way, when you give it away and you show people how they can be saved, you're not lost anything. You're actually gaining more by giving them that. So that's our job. That's what we're supposed to do. So in this Bible study we're going through, teaching you how to win a soul to Christ, how to witness to someone, leading a soul to Christ, the simple plan of salvation. Now, you do not have to do it exactly like this. There's a reason why I do everything that I do, and I teach you why, and I believe it's helpful, and there's a reason, a purpose for it. But as you can see from the Bible, if you just quoted John 3:16 and they understood it, they can get saved from that. But this is a simple plan of how to get there, okay? All right, go ahead. So, heaven. All right. Does heaven look like that? Nope. It looks 10,000 times better than that. But if you got a choice, heaven or the next, hell. Does hell look like that? Nope. Hell is a lot worse than that. But if you have a choice, heaven or hell, which would it be? I think we choose heaven. If you had a choice for your friends and for your family, heaven or hell, which would it be? Hopefully heaven. And by the way, those are the only two choices. It's heaven or hell. There's no in between. There's no purgatory. There's no, well, I'll just inherit the earth and don't worry about it. There's a millennial reign of 1,000 years where we inherit the earth. But for eternity, it's heaven or hell. And so that's our choice, okay? So what are we supposed to do? To tell them 3 statements you need to memorize, but you want to memorize them well enough that it doesn't sound like you have them memorized, okay? So that's what we want to do, all right? So learn them well enough it doesn't sound like you have them memorized, okay? So the 3 statements are, and they're broken up in phrases so they're easy to remember. If you died today, say it with me. If you died today, do you know for sure you'd go to heaven, or would you have a doubt, okay? So put all 3 of those up there. Say it with me again. Here we go. If you died today, do you know for sure you'd go to heaven, or would you have a doubt? Okay? So if you ask them if they're saved, yeah, I literally talked to a guy one time. I know I'm saved. Okay? How do you know that? I was on a World War II ship, and it was supposed to go down, and it didn't, and I knew then I was saved. And boy, he really thought he was saved. So it's a different question to ask. Ask them if they're Christian. Oh yeah, I grew up in America. My parents are Christians. Just because your parents are Christians doesn't make you a Christian. Just because you weren't killed in a car accident doesn't mean you're saved. You understand? Those terms are more general. If you died today, do you know for sure you'd go to heaven, or would you have a doubt? Okay? So, first question. Memorize it well enough it doesn't sound like you haven't memorized. Next. Second is, in your opinion. And everyone likes to give their opinion. So go ahead and ask it. In your opinion, what do you think someone would have to do to go to heaven Okay, so ask them that. Here we go. In your opinion, what do you think someone would have to do to go to heaven? This helps you to know where they're coming from, helps you to know if they're trusting Christ only or if they're believing in works and church and baptism and a lot of other things to go to heaven, okay? Second question. Then third is this. Again, you don't have to say it like this. There's a reason for it, but I say if I ask 20 people what they think a person would have to do to go to heaven, I would probably get 20 different answers. Doesn't matter what I think or what someone else thinks. It only matters what the Bible says. Now, where we just asked them their opinion, so if they think this is what you have to do to go to heaven, is that right? They gave you their opinion, and that's what they believe. Have you ever found people on their opinion, they're real stubborn? That's what they believe? Okay? What this does is it shows it doesn't matter what we believe. It only matters what God says. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's what we're doing. So, I would probably get 20 different answers. It doesn't matter what I think or what someone else thinks. It only matters what the Bible says, okay? And so that's what we want to do. We're setting the Bible up as the authority. It only matters what God says. It doesn't matter what we say or what we think, okay? So those are the three main points you want to memorize well enough it doesn't sound like you haven't memorized. Now, the last one, that's a longer one. If you said, look, if I ask a lot of people how to go to heaven, I get a lot of different answers. It only matters what God says. Okay, that's basically what we're saying. And so if you want to shorten it to get used to it, that's fine. Okay? All right, next. Can I take a few minutes and show you what the Bible says on how to go to heaven? So you want to go ahead and ask them that. If you have a New Testament in your purse or in your coat, go ahead and pull it out and start to show them. Can I take a few minutes and show you from the Bible how you can know for sure you go to heaven? Okay? All right, next. So now, different lesson. We're talking about setting up the Bible is what I call it. Okay? Setting up the Bible. We're going to set up the Bible as the authority, just like we just said. It doesn't matter what we think. It only matters what the Bible says. We're going to set up where we're going to be talking to them from the Bible and you as the authority. So next, set up the Bible. What this does is it gives credibility to you as a presenter and the book of Romans as a place to show them. When you show them Romans to go to heaven, why are you showing them Romans? I mean, honestly, a lot of people would have a question about that. So this is going to set that up, and it also sets you up as an authority, and that's an important thing. Okay? Next, simple. So there's a simple way to do it. Genesis, I usually say this. How many books is this? Okay? Or how many books are in the Bible? A lot of times we think this is how many books? One. Because it's in one book, all right? But there's a book of Genesis, the book of Exodus, the book of Leviticus. There's 66 different books. Okay, and to a lot of people, oh, wow, they didn't even know that. So the book of Genesis talks about what? Go and ask them. Most people know. Genesis talks about what? Beginnings, okay? Next, how it was in the beginning. Then the book of Revelation talks about how things were, what? In the end, okay? So very simply, that lets them know there's more than one book and there's more than one topic. And then the next one you're going to go to is what empire was in charge during the New Testament time? And most of them will know the what? The Roman Empire, okay? And then next, the book of Romans was written to tell the whole world how they can know that they're on the way to heaven. So a very simple way, Genesis talks about what? Beginnings. Revelation talks about what? The end. The book of Romans, under the Roman Empire, talks about how to go to heaven. That's the simple way, the quick way. Honestly, if somebody was going to tell me how to go to heaven and they just randomly open up to Romans, in my mind, I'd be wondering, why are you going to Romans? Why didn't you go to another book? How do I know that's different from this or this is different from that? This little thing helps you, oh wow, they know the different books of the Bible and what they're for, and this also sets up the book of Romans as the authority. Okay, go to the next. Now, a more advanced, if you have more time and you're sitting down with them and you want to go through a little more, nothing wrong with doing this. This will show you as more of the authority and that you know what you're talking about. So Genesis means beginnings. Revelation is the end. Matthew shows Jesus as king. Mark shows Jesus as a servant. Luke shows Jesus as a man. John shows Jesus as God. 1st and 2nd Timothy and Titus were written to pastors. They're called pastoral epistles. They're written from an older preacher telling me, a young preacher, okay, forget it, a young preacher, how to be a good preacher. Okay, that's the purpose of those books. Then Romans are written to tell the whole world how to go to heaven. So if you know a few more of the books, again, it sets you up as the authority and why we're showing them in Romans how to go to heaven. Okay, next. Romans talks about all the big complicated words that have to do with salvation. You don't have to do this. This is more if you have time, and we're still setting up the Bible. We're setting up Romans. So Romans talks about all the complicated words that have to do with salvation, like justification, sanctification, imputation, glorification, etc. But it also makes it very simple on how a person can know that they're on the way to heaven. Okay? Again, this is setting you up as the authority. And this is setting up the book of Romans as the authority. Is it important to be an authority if you're going to show somebody how to go to heaven? If you went to talk to a doctor and said, "Now, are you a doctor?" "Well, no, not really, but I read this book about being a doctor one time." "What's your problem?" What would you think? Yeah, leave quickly. But when you walk in and they are a real doctor and their board certification and their certificates and all those things are in there, they set themselves up as the authority and you feel safer in going to them. This is sort of what we're doing, okay? So, next. When you set up the Bible, you never have anyone that ever says, "Why are you using Romans and not somewhere else?" When you do what we just did, it takes that out of their mind. They'll never ask you, "Why are you going to Romans?" Okay? We're telling them why we're doing that, and it establishes that as the authority to show them. Okay? And next, also, it does set you up as an authority in the Bible, and that is important. Why? Next verse. Matthew 7:29 is talking about Jesus. "For he taught them as one having authority and not as the scribes." Okay? Jesus taught them as one that hath authority and not as the scribes. And that's the way we need to teach, that we know what we're talking about. If you were talking to someone and they really didn't know what they were talking about, it wouldn't give you any confidence. You don't really know if you're going to listen to them or not. But when you talk to somebody and they know exactly and they're laying it out and they're clear, hey, you put confidence in them, okay? It says we need to speak with authority also. And that's what we're doing by setting up the Bible, okay? So first, we have the 3 points. If you die today, do you know